Historic result over in the World Cup. We'll get to that in just a moment. But first, the NHL is now on to the offseason as Carolina hoists the Stanley Cup. The 2026 draft is going to be held here in Buffalo. That is going to be going on next Friday and Saturday. And then free agency. That is going to start on July 1st. And for more on this upcoming offseason, both Paul Hamilton and Brayton Wilson have pieces up at our website, WGR550.com. Now to the World Cup. One game for today is already in the books, and it's Cape Verde, led by 40-year-old goalie Vozinha, who had made 7 saves today, drawing 0-0 with tournament favorites Spain down in Atlanta. This was Cape Verde's first ever match in a World Cup. Fellow Group H nations, Saudi Arabia and Uruguay, they're going to face off at 6. Starting here in just a few moments, Egypt versus Belgium, and then at 9, New Zealand, they're going to square off against Iran. Falcons defensive end James Pierce returned to the Falcons facility today, and this is the first time since being charged with aggravated battery and fleeing law enforcement all the way back on February 7th. Pierce is not expected to speak with the media, but he is expected to take part in mandatory minicamp this week. The Jets have locked in guard Joe Tippmann to a 4-year, $66.5 million deal with $34.9 million of that guaranteed. And then in baseball, the Mets, they're in Cincinnati against the Reds, first pitch at 7:10. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
It's Mike Schopp.
It's nothing you did.
It's not you, it's me.
It's not you. It's you, but you didn't cross me.
And the Bulldog.
Why did I choose? Why did I just stay in school?
On WGR, Sports Radio 550.
Trying to decide what my favorite sports thing from the weekend was. The Knicks are a tough score to beat, even though I don't care about the Knicks. Still, you got to respect it. 53 years, the New York Knicks. You got to respect it. Didn't do anything for me. I had a time in my life when I cared about the Knicks. It's over. I didn't find myself sucked back in at all. It's a generation ago. And, you can't follow and care about everything unless you want to just sort of be fake about it. So, yeah, I mean, that's a tough score to beat. I think my favorite sports in Carolina, I thought it was just between us. Really cool that when I ask this question of her all the time, but as my daughter was, making her last visit to the kitchen and bathroom downstairs last night on her way back to her room, I said, "Do you want to watch the end of the Stanley Cup Finals with me?" And she's like, "Why not?" So I try not to cry. That was big. And they kind of, didn't it seem, if you watched it, by the way, like it took a while to get to the cup? There was, the requisite celebration on the ice, and then there was a commercial break, and then there were interviews, and then there was the Conn Smythe trophy, and then there was more, and I thought maybe there were going to be more commercials, but there weren't, and eventually, it's almost like, it felt to me like they couldn't find the Stanley Cup last night, but they probably knew where it was. They had Phil Pritchard action shots of him polishing it, in the minutes leading up to it, and my daughter eventually went like, "Wait, is this the last game?" Like, well, it is if Carolina wins. So I sort of begged her to stay up for the actual Stanley Cup, and she did, and that was cool just for us. So that's on the list. Knicks, even though we don't like the Hurricanes. I think my favorite thing of the weekend is Levi Stadium. I'm having a blast with the names of the stadiums at the World Cup being changed. I loved watching a game at Los Angeles Stadium. This is like an old video game where they did not have the rights to the names of the stadiums. So it's just like they can't. I think I should ask my wife. She's an attorney. I don't think they can ban you from using the name of the city. I think you can always hopefully, is it that bad now? I think you can probably always use the name of the city. I loved Boston Stadium this weekend, even though the stadium is like 45 minutes to an hour outside of Boston. They couldn't have been just like Massachusetts Stadium or Providence Stadium. No, it's Boston Stadium. Got to make it sound big. Loved New York, New Jersey Stadium. That rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? New York, New Jersey Stadium. As if New York were a town in New Jersey. but there's no punctuation. It's just New York, New Jersey, all caps, no lines, no slashes, no commas. New York, New Jersey Stadium. How stupid is all of this? And then my favorite of all is Bay Area Stadium. Now, I'm not sure that's the, quote, official name, but I was in my car for whatever game, I think it was on Saturday, for whatever game it was that was played in the 49, am I allowed to say, who knows anymore? I might get fired for this. The 49ers Stadium. There was a game there, I promise you, and it was repeatedly described as Bay Area. Because the place, I guess it's a little farther from San Francisco than, Gillette Stadium is from Boston? Or else, why wouldn't Gillette Stadium be whatever I said already, as opposed to Boston Stadium? We want Boston. Was there some sort of fight over the use of San Francisco? Did Oakland raise its hand? I mean, it's not in San Francisco. Imagine if we had Buffalo Stadium in this thing, but it's like in Orchard Park, so it's not Buffalo Stadium at all. And then like who? Springville objects, and like we want it. New York State. We have New York, New Jersey, Western New York Stadium. It's also clunky and terrible, but the 49er Stadium is the naming rights belong to Levi's, the jeans. Although, are they selling lattes now too, like everybody else is? Maybe they're not just jeans anymore. Can I buy hats there? Levi Stadium, and the fact that it's so obvious, or was so obvious, that their logo is being covered up just made it funny that you're not supposed to, like, well, maybe if you're living in Asia, you don't know what it's actually saying behind that tarp. But, you know, for me and for us, it's kind of funny that you can't, they're not calling it Levi Stadium or even San Francisco or even Santa Clara. It's Bay Area. And what apparently Levi's did was perfectly cut the white tarp around its logo so you can see the shape. And I never really thought about it this way, but these things tend to be maybe subliminal, like, or subconscious, where you don't even, there was an app many years ago I'm just thinking of where you had like a Sporkle type thing where you had to guess the companies behind the logos without seeing anything but the shape. And that was an interesting, if not depressing test, because I kind of like knew them all without knowing that I knew them all. And really, what does that tell you? It's just like, oh, that's Exxon or something, like just because it was an oval. I don't know. So what Levi's did, I guess, and Levi's. What Levi's did was perfectly trim the coverage of their sign or signs at the stadium so it was in the shape that the sign is, but you couldn't read the word. And then apparently I read an article about this. I mean, I'm not out here, it might sound like it, but I'm not out here, searching for this stuff. It's just, oh, look at this. Levi's won by not being an actual sponsor of the World Cup, right? Because that would be egregious. You were going to sponsor the World Cup, then you can get your name on it, I guess. But they didn't do that, and they won anyway. So, you know the name of the Giants and Jets Stadium and the Patriots, and I've even said it, and the Falcons, their stadium had a game today. I think right now I'm watching Seattle with whatever this is, Belgium and Egypt, two of the countries with the soft G in the middle. I've got something else later. Who was it later? Anyway, you know the names of these stadiums. Your life was simpler without it when Seattle played in the Kingdome and Atlanta played in the Georgia Dome, right? I mean, just easy game. Now we have all these, and they're changing all the time. Oh, Philadelphia. So yesterday there was a game in Philadelphia Stadium, and it bothered me that it took me like 5 minutes to think of the real name. And I couldn't think of it. I kept thinking of Heinz Field, which was in Pittsburgh, and now that's changed. Ketchup, that's wrong. What is Philadelphia? Eventually I got it. Do I need to say it? Lincoln Financial Field? So just so you believe me that I actually did know eventually what it was called. Philadelphia Stadium. It's also dumb. Just like, it's dumb that, well, what can I say? Everything is like this. Our facility, our system is driven by, not to sound like the Yankees broadcast, but, by sponsors, and we wouldn't exist without them. But, just like names of stadiums, I'm old. Just feel like they all should just be Yankee Stadium or whatever. But that actually still is. Since I used that example, Yankee Stadium actually still is Yankees. How has that lasted the test of time? Anyway, thanks for indulging me. I'm Mike Schopp. Bulldog is not here. This is when I say, isn't it funny that I'm telling you that now because he hasn't talked for like 10 minutes? Is he there? Is there tape over his mouth? If you're watching, you can see an empty chair, perhaps. So be it. He'll be back tomorrow. He's got a concert tonight. I barged in on Brad Reiter twice today. Just, I have a lot of respect for Brad's mind. And like, what are you doing today? This is the time of year where you can do anything. We can talk about stadium names. What's your least favorite? We can talk about food, like this is that time of year. And I asked him, and I have to say I was disappointed that he said he used something I wanted to use right here at the beginning. But that's okay. There's no rule against that. I got the email. When Bulldog is here, I mentioned this to him. The email is from Bet Online. And he generally says he intentionally chooses not to look at them so that he can be surprised when I bring them up. Which, you don't last. Marriages don't last this long without sort of an understanding like that between people. So he's not here anyway. Bet Online today, next year's Stanley Cup odds. So they're a little different from whatever Brad was using. I think maybe he was using DraftKings. And if you heard him talk about this, then you know where I'm going. How many teams how many teams should have shorter cup odds than the Sabres do? This means like better chance of winning. Less of a long shot. How many teams should come in above the Sabres? Let's run them down. Like that Price is Right game with the cliffhanger game with that hiker guy climbing up the mountain. Has the show ever sounded older? Is that maybe still on? I think it might be still on. It might still be a thing, so maybe not. But, you hit the buzzer. Here, I don't think there's a buzzer. How many teams come in above the Sabres in Stanley Cup odds? And what does this tell us? That's the conversation I want to have with you, is what does this tell us? Maybe nothing interesting, maybe something really interesting and meaningful. Of course, Carolina would be the favorite. Rarely is the team that just won the title the night before not next year's favorite. Remember in this, or just keep in mind, there's an element of conference power balances and divisions. Super Bowl odds, this is where it's more intuitive, I think, where depending on how strong the division is, a team, I don't know, this is Kansas City maybe right now, has a tougher climb, or so the bettors think, because there are, in the Chiefs' case, two teams in their division beside them that are thought to be really good. And that's different from, who's the opposite of this? NFC West is even a better example than this. Really, like, is it AFC East? No, there's like NFC East. Let's use that. NFC East might be the one where, despite there being questions about Philadelphia, which plays at Lincoln Financial Field, nobody else is sort of on the same tier or considered to be for, like chances this year. Anyway, maybe that doesn't even apply here. Carolina is the favorite. The Avalanche are second. That makes sense. They were the best team in the league this year. Vegas busted them. Happens. Vegas is third. This is next year's Stanley Cup odds. Vegas is third, 10-1. I mean, I could never, but I was just in a hockey pool that I ran. And Vegas played something called Utah in the playoffs. And what did I do? That's right. I loaded up on Utah, which didn't work out. Edmonton is fourth. Edmonton and Vegas in the same division, tied with Florida, Minnesota, Tampa Bay. So now we've reached two teams in the Sabres division who are above them. Next year's Cup odds, 12-1, tied for fourth favorite. Florida, Tampa, Edmonton, Minnesota. Minnesota comes in above Dallas, which is interesting. Dallas, I don't know why that is. I mean, Minnesota beat them, but okay. Dallas comes in tied with Montreal and, Ottawa. They're next. Ottawa, 16-1 to win next year's Stanley Cup. That's probably because of all the times we remember Ottawa winning the Stanley Cup, and we sort of give them the benefit of the doubt based on their tradition and reputation of being champions. 16-1. I'm at 10 teams. So much for that division balance of power point. 10 teams, 4 are in the Atlantic Division, none of which is the reigning champion of said division. Well, it's because the Sabres are losing all their free agents. Anybody already have a strong take on why this is this way? I have to ramp myself up into one because it was more just kind of baffled by it. The joke on Ottawa applies to us, but you can't really. We're not to the Sabres yet, and they're not even next. You can't even use that because the Senators, who've won nothing ever, thanks for the tweet in advance for about what happened in 1908, they're at 16-1, and we're way past that. Basically, your bet on the Sabres to win the Cup next year is almost double the return on what Ottawa's would be. Right? 16-1, Dallas, Montreal, Ottawa. Montreal, okay. They did just win 2 rounds. 25-1, 2 teams. This is even better. 2 teams at 25-1. Anaheim and New Jersey are next. Could the Rangers spend their money and get good again? Could Pittsburgh bring back their legends, trio and win? They were in the playoffs, win again. Could Philadelphia build on a great rally to the playoffs and then a series win? Could Washington, maybe with Ovechkin back, I think they had as many points in the regular season as Vegas did. Wow. Could Washington do that? New Jersey gets the nod at 25-1. And then, there they are, the Buffalo Sabres at 28-1. Then LA and Utah. So that really was a team. That's a team, Utah. Yeah. The Sabres come in 13th. Really asking, why such little respect? Anybody? Why such little respect? What is it about the Sabres as the defending division champs that won a round and went to overtime of Game 7 in round 2 is lacking for they to be behind the Devils and Ducks and way behind the Senators as Cup favorites? They're the 5th favorite in their division to win it. Now, I'll throw in that on Friday, Bulldog and I talked about next season for them, and we did a reverse power rankings thing. You're welcome. It's really been a delight to do that. It's charmed listeners far and wide. It's really one of our special trademarks. We did this for the Atlantic Division, and he ended up putting the Sabres 3rd. I got it right here, behind Montreal and Tampa. And then later on Friday's show, I asked him, would you take that? He said, yes. He would take 3rd place for the Sabres. Well, 3rd place, this is not exactly division standings, but it's Cup odds. And according to that, 3rd place is sort of better than expectations. Florida 12-1, Tampa Bay 12-1, Montreal 16-1. Ottawa 16-1. What? Buffalo 28-1. Rest of the division, I mean, I got to really scroll down here. We have Toronto at 40. We have Detroit and Boston at 80-1. What did Toronto do that was so special to make them, twice the favorite of the Bruins and the Red Wings even? So what is it? I'm watching Carolina, and as we do, I think, every go-round with these, what is it, hockey, football, anything, what is it about the team that won that my team that didn't win is lacking? I wanted to be able to put forth that Carolina has like a superstar, and I don't know that the Sabres do. I don't know that they ever will have, although Hasek is he was this as a goalie, but it's not about that. It's that Carolina really doesn't make that easy for me. They have so many good players, and they're deep, and you can't penetrate them, and it almost doesn't matter who their goalie is. Like, they're just that complete as a team. And it was Stankoven for a while, and then it was Blake, and then it was Taylor Hall, and then it was Jordan Stahl who came in, swooped in, and took the Conn Smythe Trophy out of other guys' hands. And, sort of a fitting representation of what they are as a team, like just the right combination of youth and experience and two-way guys and finishers. Really, they ended up, I like to complain about sports seasons that end with mediocre teams lucking into championships. That's not what happened here. You can't say that about this. Maybe you could have about Vegas. If Vegas had won the Stanley Cup, we'd spend the whole time talking about the playoff format and just how ridiculous it is that they even got in, but then they got, the matchups they got until they got to the Avs. You can't take that away from them. But they didn't win. Carolina really did, I would say, outclass them, even though it went 6. And I thought by the end of the series, that really did bear itself out. I mean, Game 5 and Game 6 were both, there's no question which of these teams is the better team. So Carolina does not make it sort of cut and dried, well, the Sabres need a superstar. And that's with respect to Dahlin and even Thompson, but they're not on the same level in my book. Like, Dahlin is an elite NHL player. He's great. And if he doesn't get hurt, maybe it will help him to get a cup or 2 or more. I mean, right? I know, it's crazy. But, that's kind of a Hall of Fame caliber player, I think. Thompson is not. Thompson's very good, and he has meant a lot to the Sabres' success even before this season. I mean, he's been their leading scorer. 40 goals 3 years in a row, whatever it is. So I don't really want to throw shade on him. I'm not meaning to do that. But he's not a superstar. And Dahlin is almost one. Dahlin would be one maybe if he were on a different team, where he would be, to the extent that it's still hockey, a household name. In houses that talk about hockey. He would be that. Maybe in houses that talk about hockey, he already is. So he's here, and Thompson's here, and then that's it. There's no one else in that conversation. And thinking about Kekalainen and the job before him, and what happens with Alex Tuch, who I'm assuming is probably gone. I want Kekalainen to be able to find somebody like Tuch who is plausible, who's believable as a player that can give you something akin to that, either in stats or in size or ideally both. That's the downside of losing Tuch, is that you've got 34 goals or 33 goals and he's 6'4". Like, you've got a combination of traits and production there. But I keep saying, I want this GM to be the quality that he can he can unearth somebody like this and replace Tuch with him. I don't know who that is, because I'm not that GM. But I wonder if what's holding the Sabres back in these odds, here you have Ottawa so much above them which who even cares about Ottawa? Like, what is it about the Sabres that's lacking toward respect for their chances next year? I mean, you can't just say they're in a too tough division because you've got 4 or 5 teams in the division who come in way above them in the odds. What am I missing? Is it goaltending? Is it a lack of a star? Is it really just that Alex Tuch is probably going? Would Bet Online bettors care that much about that? I don't know. But it's a blow to the ego that they come in so low on this list that the Devils have shorter cup odds than Buffalo. What do you think? What is the answer to this little riddle? 803-0550 is the number. Tyler Dunn today at 4. Sal Capaccio probably tentatively scheduled for 5. You know Sal, he's always busy. But will make time for us any chance he can. And we're hoping for 5 o'clock, but we'll see how his day plays out. Don't change the station because you're going to want to find out what happens with that. What do you think the answer to this Sabres thing is? How are the Ottawa Senators 16-1 to win the Stanley Cup next year, and Buffalo is 28-1? And you don't have to speak the language either. Just like, is that intuitive at all? 803-0550. I'm Mike Schopp. Thanks for listening. This is WGR.
For more comfort.
Now's the perfect time to make yourself comfortable with a new electric heating and cooling system from Belknap.
In Western New York, summer and winter bring extreme temperature conditions. Make yourself comfortable with Mitsubishi electric heat pumps, designed to keep your home cool in the summer and warm in the winter, no matter how hot or cold it gets outside. Call Belknap today to learn more.
I'm Gary Garflow, president of Belknap. We work on your schedule. We don't charge more for weekends and evenings. That's why we say,
Give Belknap a ring.
Now, sitting back behind watching it all, it was about wanting it for these guys because there's no harder working group. I see it every day, and I'm just really, it's just like a proud dad back here watching, his kids go to work. Just couldn't say enough good things about this group.
Rod Brindamore. Hey, what can I say? I'm getting soft. I have a theory for this. Watching last night, and I mentioned how my daughter watched the game with me, and I was into that. So I wasn't going to sit there, like, proverbially speaking, throwing things at the television because it was Carolina. I don't know any of those people. I don't know Rod Brindamore or Jordan Stahl. I think it's kind of cool that Jordan Stahl is the oldest Conn Smythe Trophy winner. I had a bet on someone else, and that was a little bit of a bummer, but I don't think it was a bad choice, really. And he's been a good player for a long time, and he got hot at the right time, and they won. So I don't have any problem with it. Brindamore has been, ever since 2006, if not before that, as a player when he played for Philadelphia even, just one of those sort of, it's like two things. With hockey, it's always two things at once. It's like, I hate that guy, but I wish I had him. And he's been that, and he's been the coach there a long time. They've won a ton of games. What did Gary Bettman say on the ice? They've won more games in the regular season than any other team over the last 8 seasons. I'm a big regular season guy, and I respect that. So I didn't sit there last night hate watching it, somebody had to win. And I don't know, like, I say this all the time, and it never ends up being really a debate or much of a conversation, but I would love to know somebody that feels the same way or that just doesn't agree at all. I much prefer a sports season when a top team wins the title. What is that about me that I do that? Like, does anybody else care about that? Is that just sort of me being my age? Like, when I was growing up, hockey had 16 teams in the playoffs, but maybe 10 of them were a joke. Like, there were dynasties. It was the Islanders, the Canadiens before that, a little before my time, and then the Islanders, and then the Oilers. And there were just teams that were the best. And even though there would be first-round series against Winnipeg or Vancouver, the Oilers would almost never lose. And the top teams were almost at no risk ever of losing in the first round. Once in a while it would happen. Now, the first round is, and this has been true for a long time, the first round is really close. That's quintessentially Buffalo and Boston this year, I would say, where they were, 9 points apart in the standings, and it was perfectly reasonable to think the Bruins would win. That's how close it is. And this is what sports have built. It's what they want. Hockey, for as many times as we can joke about how many teams make the playoffs, it's not really any different anymore than other sports. Like, it's half. Hockey is half. And football is almost half. Football is 14 out of 32. They're going to get there. Believe it. They're going to get to 8 playoff teams per conference before long. More games, more money. Basketball is this. Baseball with its wild card teams and its best of 3, or even before that, 1-game playoffs. Like, it's just how it is. So hockey doesn't have more teams by percentage, but they're just like all good, or almost. It's more competitive. What was the point? I like it when a top team wins it. And that's what put me on, if I had to root for somebody, it would have been Carolina in this series. I didn't sit there, edge of my seat with a noisemaker and confetti or anything. It wasn't like that. But all else equal, I would have preferred Carolina to win because they just had a better season by a lot and have more claim to they were the best team this year in the league. It's even tough, as bitter of a loss. Tell me if you feel differently. As bitter of a loss as it was for the Sabres to endure, to suffer, I couldn't ever get to, well, they would have beaten Carolina. Some years, Bulldog and I talked to Marty Baron the other day, and 2001 came up when a team he was on, Marty, not Bulldog, lost to Pittsburgh in overtime of Game 7 of the second round, and New Jersey was waiting for the winner, and they would go to the finals. They lost to the Avalanche that year, but Jersey had won cups, and they were, a top team. And I still remembered that the Sabres swept the Devils that regular season. They beat them 4 straight. And that was one where, like, there might have been a path for the Sabres to get there. But even when, this didn't bother me at the time, but even when they lost to Dallas, I was like, well, this was really fun. They were very close. But Dallas was a top team that year, the whole year, and had more of a claim to, like, this was their year. It's just sort of a concept. And the Bills, actually, the best example for me with the Bills for this is 2020. And they've been good to great for 5 more years after that, but never quite on the same level as that team where I just can't quit this. Like, I will always think that was their year. And they lose to Kansas City kind of bad in the end in the AFC Championship after being ahead. And then Kansas City goes to Tampa and gets blown out in that Super Bowl by the Bucs. The point is only as I just sort of meander here with different examples, I prefer a season when the champion is like a team that really was up here the whole year, or just about. Whether that can be parsed by, months or stretches. Really, end of the regular season, this is a division winner, best record in the conference. That's Carolina. And they end up playing a Vegas team that was way worse and get home ice and then win. So that gets me to them. If I have to pick, that gets me to them. But I was talking before about the Sabres and next season. And we've got an interesting 3 weeks here, after which it'll go, dormant for a couple of months. But we've got the draft, which is the following weekend, next weekend, not this weekend, next weekend, here in Buffalo, for what it's worth. Then you have free agency after that. This does feel like a time when, if you can risk saying this ever about any league, but hockey in this case, there could or should be trades. The Sabres have Tuck to figure out. I think they're probably playing this like they think he's leaving, unless they, by every report, change their position on his value. He's going. There's got to be a team in the league that's going to do for him what the Sabres are not willing to do, and that's probably the end of Alex Tuck. Then you've got your own young players to pay and, lock up, do all of that. But won't they probably figure out a way to somebody else that they can promote as the next era's Alex Tuck, if you will, the replacement? I think they probably intend to do that. We had this conversation last year when it was J.J. Peterka, who might be going. And he was not an unrestricted free agent, but there was lots of speculation about that. And yes, those conversations tended to be, well, they'll figure out a way to somebody else to replace his scoring. But I don't think anybody probably had the same level of confidence that would happen. Like, it should. And when it didn't, it was Doan and Kesselring, and Doan was, quite a find. And maybe Kesselring will even work out, but that was not the story this year. When it didn't happen, or when we wondered if this was going to be a thing that happened, you still had to have that typical kind of Sabre restrictor plate, something that would keep you from getting too confident, too optimistic that there would be a corresponding move, that there would be a known player that would come in and basically replace Peterka's offense. Looking back on that, obviously it is easy to say it didn't kill them. And what they had, and they lost Kulik, but what they had in Doan, and then also Benson and Helenius eventually, and just the other Krebs, the other pieces, it got the job done for them. So you didn't know, or you maybe never know what that's going to turn into. I feel differently about this GM. in multiple ways. I don't know if ownership is really that different in terms of commitment as it was in the past. I don't know that. I don't have any proof that it is. But they did have a great season. And I think this GM is just no joke. And I think a guy like this, how do I mean this? A guy like this. I think he's somebody that likes the action. And I feel this way about Brandon Beane, too, and that's been with mixed results, Beane, but that's typical. You can't win them all. I think Kekalainen is somebody that he's going to want to be active, not just because he's got a team that now, unlike a year ago, before he even got the job, is now in position to really go for it. But I think that also might just be his nature. I mean, think about that Parayko trade that did not happen. That was last year's first-round pick and this year's first-round pick in a draft they're hosting. For a big defenseman who not everybody agreed was like all that, a little bit on the older side, big money. I mean, what a trade. And even though it didn't come to fruition, that was a trade they agreed on. This was a trade the Sabres chose to make, and it came to light. So there's no questioning that. And that's on the blue line where they already are stacked. So it tells you something about his view of positional strength and just how he wanted to see this forward. Ultimately, as we know, it got to Stanley and Shen instead. And they kept last year's first-round pick, Murka, so they still have him and the draft pick. But that's a trade they wanted to make. That, to me, it was pretty stunning when we found out about that, thinking at the time that it was going to happen. But whether it did or didn't, we know that they wanted it to happen. That, to me, is a move made by a GM that is not afraid. Like, he knows what he wants and will spend for it. And those are my favorite GMs. They bring the whole thing to life. They're not married to their draft picks. They're not married to their prospects. They're going to go for it when they have a sniff of a playoff run. And why would, despite these odds today for next year's Cup, why would these Sabres not have that attitude after what this year was? I think they will. 803-0550 if you have a comment. Bulldog is not here. He's going to a concert tonight, I think. I mean, I know he is. He has told me that. We have conversations, and I just always these days want to be a little bit, I want to hedge a little bit because I forget things now and want to make sure I'm not just misremembering something. But that's his plan. He'll be back tomorrow unless tonight is just that amazing and he ends up sort of running away with the band. I don't know. But I'm expecting he'll be back tomorrow. We have Tyler Dunn coming up in less than 20 minutes. I'm Mike Schopp, and this is WGR. Yes. Yeah, I guess you can do that. Even though Bulldog is not here, the show is still being aired. There have been meetings. They decided to go through with it. So here we are yet again. 10,000 shows, and he doesn't even bother to come in. A milestone like none other that we've achieved. Anyway, tomorrow he can be here for 10,001, I guess. That's a joke. So, no, he'll be here tomorrow, but that is once in a while I'll mention the 10,000th show line just because I think it's funny, and I will get a congratulations tweet or something, and I have to say, well, actually, not that I know that it isn't 10,000. It's probably not. Nobody's counting. I'm pretty sure nobody's counting. If you are, let me know the number. That would be cool. Tyler Dunn coming up at 4. It is halftime at the World Cup. Egypt 1, Belgium 0. Zip, nada, 0, zilch. Actually, with World Cup, you can, I think maybe because how they're sort of listed in the graphic, Belgium is the home team. Does that even matter in World Cup? But it's Belgium 0, Egypt 1. You get that from soccer. You get the team, unlike any other sport. If somebody ever tells you the score with the higher number second, you know they really don't follow sports. In soccer, though, you can do it. It happens all the time. Belgium 0, Egypt 1. Looking forward to the next hydration break. I'm looking forward to having one of my own here. It's not a water break. Why? Water doesn't spend money. Water has no money. We're taking down the names of the stadium naming rights people, and we are definitely not calling this a water break. We also have space ref in soccer. I've learned, or at least in this tournament, I've learned about that. There are 3 people in a bunker. One is like the deputy VAR. They show them at the beginning. They're all very proud to be there at the beginning of every match. And we have the ability, and we've had it happen numerous times, we can't award corner kicks, but we can take them away. In the game that was on earlier with Spain and Cabo Verde, Spain was awarded a corner kick on the field. Space ref buzzed down. Nope. Goal kick. We look at it. It's just like with the NFL. They look at it really fast. Nobody that I've seen has complained about this yet, but they will. Once they think it through, they'll complain because it's really just more of an intrusion and more officiousness that we absolutely do not need in sports. But, hey, it makes it faster, I guess. That's the defense. I don't know. Get it right. Just always get it right, I guess. Tyler Dunn next here on WGR.
Historic result over in the World Cup. We'll get to that here in just a moment. But first up, the NHL is officially on to the offseason. Carolina does hoist the Stanley Cup. And next up is going to be the 2026 draft. That is going to be held right here in Buffalo. That'll be going on next Friday and Saturday. And then we've got free agency. That's going to start on July 1st. And for more on the upcoming offseason, both Paul Hamilton and Brayton Wilson have pieces up at our website, WGR550.com. And just coming down the last few minutes here, Elliot Friedman is reporting that the NHL is officially moving forward with their investigation into the resignation of Mike Babcock back in 2023 when he was the then head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets. This is going on because the Edmonton Oilers appear wanting to hire Babcock as their next head coach. Now to the World Cup. We do already have one result in the books for today. It is Cape Verde, led by 40-year-old goalie Vozina, who made 7 saves. They draw 0-0 with tournament favorite Spain down in Atlanta. This was Cape Verde's first ever match in the World Cup. Fellow Group H nations, Saudi Arabia and Uruguay, they're going to face off a little bit later on this afternoon at 6. Currently going on right now, Egypt does lead Belgium 1-0. The second half is going to begin here in just a few minutes. Egypt looking for their first ever World Cup win if they can hold on to that one. And then at 9 o'clock tonight, New Zealand, they square off against Iran. Over in the NFL, Falcons defensive end James Pierce returned to Falcons facility today. This is the first time since being charged with aggravated battery and fleeing law enforcement all the way back on February 7th. Pierce is not expected to speak with the media, but all signs do point to him taking part in mandatory minicamp this week. And the Jets, they have locked in guard Joe Tippmann to a 4-year, $66.4 million deal. $34.9 million of that is guaranteed. It's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
It's Mike Schopp
You might be mocking me or you might be staunchly agreeing with me. I can't tell.
I'm mocking you.
and the Bulldog
What is Fozzie Bear's role in this production?
on WGR Sports Radio 550.
I'm going to give you a freebie here. Not that you're used to paying for whatever we give you, but if you are a sicko that likes the challenge of the Sporkle quiz, so sporkle.com, all kinds of different various shapes and forms of trivia. Maps are my favorite quadrant on Sporkle, and the hardest one that I've ever been able to succeed at is a map of the entire world with no outlines of countries. And it's called a minefield. So if you ever get one wrong, you're out. 198 countries. You got to get them all without a single mistake, which is not that easy. I'm going to give you a freebie here. Cabo Verde is, if you take a picture Africa, take a look at it, it's the farthest, the westernmost point of Africa, which is north. If you go straight west from there, there's like these little dots. That's Cabo Verde, little islands off the coast of West Africa. So there. Next time you're doing that exact puzzle and Cabo Verde comes up, now you know. Or maybe you already did. With me now on the Wester Hotline, well, when he's not writing award-winning long-form pieces about NFL players, he's doing the Lord's work, putting shopping carts back, or at least publicly shaming people who don't. Here is Tyler Dunn. I took the liberty of assuming you've won awards.
I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. I think we do have to stick to the floss and tossers, though, Mike. I think we've moved on.
Okay.
I've seen people returning their shopping carts better. It's the wayward flossing devices. I saw more on my trip to Vikings country in Minnesota. I see them down here, even in the southern tier of Western New York. We've got to clean it up. It's getting out of control.
I, on some level, can understand why somebody doesn't want to keep their burned out cigarette in their car. I don't get this one. It's like the Q-tips. You really just can't take it home and throw it out, or have like a small garbage bag or something in your car. You really have to just throw it out the window. I mean, I don't even know if I want to split hairs like this with the cigarettes versus these things. But, I mean, okay, it's burning, and you might not want to just put it down on your leather seat. But the floss thing, I don't know. I just, Tyler, it's bad. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, you're smart enough to realize you got to floss, right? You got some gunk between your teeth.
Respect that.
It's going to stay there unless you do something about it. You've got some intelligence there, and then it really is the height of narcissism, putting yourself above everybody else, just assuming Mother Nature or another human being, somebody or something is going to clean up your mess. It's sad, and these people should be thrown into prison. I think at least 10 years.
If you're lucky enough to have Jameis Winston walking around when you do this, though, he'll pick it right up and throw it out. Did you see Jameis Winston? Have you ever had a minute with him? Did you see Jameis Winston? Now I'm starting to worry that I fell for something last night with the Japanese team fans cleaning up the stadium in Dallas. Did I fall for that? Was that not really him? Come on, help me out here.
I didn't see it, but obviously it makes all the sense in the world. Yeah, I did do a story on Jameis back in my Bleacher Report days. That was around the time he was doing all those funky drills, like with his uncle. Remember, he's like hitting him with a pad, and it's just the craziest stuff that you'd ever see a quarterback do in the off season. Since then, I don't think I've seen like a 180 in public perception. Like, do we remember what Jameis Winston was back in college and
yes.
into the NFL? It's kind of wild that he's just beloved by everybody now. I don't know.
It is. But, he's following the Marshawn Lynch path in some way, shape, or form where, remember Lynch leaving here? A lot of that, I was in the middle of it. A lot of that was off the field, and most of it. And now he's America's dad or something, Marshawn Lynch, with the ads and the World Cup and everything else. Anyway. I've wasted enough of your time on this. Well, I do want to say one more thing about shopping carts, though, before we get into Josh Allen and the rest of it and the football.
Please.
Are you the type where you're dutifully putting the shopping cart away in that bay or whatever it is? You're not taking it back into the store, but they've got a place for this. And you have the big cart. And at the end, like there's a lot of carts in there. It's a busy Sunday. And a lot of the carts toward the end of the bay nearest you are the short ones. Will you just stuff the big cart into the little carts, or will you do better than that and maybe just try to find a way to, like a path for the big cart or just another big cart to shove yours into, or what? Is that good enough to put it into the little carts? Because the workers are going to have to separate those.
I'm with you 100%. There has to be some cart chivalry. Is that what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
There's got to be some order. It's not enough just to bring the cart to the corral and hope for the best. Because there's still some cleanup work to be done there for the cart boy or girl that has to then take 100 of these things and shove them back into the grocery store, wherever. There's got to be some order. There's got to be some organization. I'm with you. I don't just throw it there and hope for the best of luck.
No, right. Let them deal with it. It's sort of the same premise as the floss things and the Q-tips and all of it. Well, Tyler, it's great to have you back on. Sorry that Bulldog's not here for this. I know he is disappointed to miss you. The story about Josh Allen, which is a few weeks ago now, or at least a couple, there was the one particular quote that got maybe more attention than anything else about the excellent piece, and that's Allen referring to, maybe suggesting that his career might not last as long as we want it to. When I can't play the way I'm used to or want to, that'll be it. What was it listening to him, looking at him when he said that? Did the response to that quote seem commensurate with how you feel like he meant it?
Well, I hopefully wrote it this way as well. This was, if I remember correctly, we're talking about Denver and those two plays that were on his mind this particular day, the fumble right before halftime, the throw to Dawson Knox that he missed, and that's really where the root of all his pain was in that post-game presser, the tears, the emotion. I think he really felt like, whoa, this is on me, and he absorbed all the blame. And so, those two plays are still on his mind. He's thinking about them. We're chatting about it. And it was me who kind of posed it this way. And obviously we've talked about it a million times, and at Go Long, I've been writing about it for a while. I don't know, my personal opinion, you've got to let Josh Allen be Josh Allen. This is how he just took a blowtorch to all of the doubters, back to every college coach not wanting him out of high school, on to college, Fresno State in the backyard. They don't even want him multiple times over. Onto the NFL. I mean, the guy's getting mocked and memed and ridiculed, when he misses a pass in training camp. Like, he has been himself every step of the way. And I always liken it to, like, trying to tell a comedian like Dave Chappelle you can't swear. Like, the second you kind of put fear or doubt or, rules and red tape and construction cones in somebody's mind, like, they're not going to take the chances they otherwise would. And then you're going to get this stale, bland version of this artist, this creator. Like, creators must create. And that's how I posed it in so many words to Josh Allen. Like, this is kind of how I've always viewed it. Josh Allen's got to be Josh Allen. And he if I remember right, is nodding along, like he gets it, and then said, quote, "I'm going to play football how I know how to play it until I can't. And when I can't play it the way I want to play it, it's probably when I'm done. But hopefully that's still quite some time." So I view it as a good thing. Like, if you're going to win a Super Bowl, if you're going to get to the Super Bowl first, which they haven't done this era, and then win it, you're not going to do it with a quarterback who is playing it safe. You're going to do it with Josh Allen stiff-arming and hurdling and, taking that chance into double coverage. Like, everything gets tougher in the playoffs. You need your quarterback playing purely as he's always intended to play to get there and to win it. So I think it's a good thing. Now, how long does it last? Who the hell knows? We've seen the likes of Cam Newton and, even go back to Mike Vick and Russ Wilson and the quarterbacks who do use their legs more than most. Things can fall off, into your late 30s. Josh Allen's proven people wrong time and time again. I don't think he's close to falling off that cliff.
Very interesting for so many reasons. Allen doesn't, in my opinion, Tyler, Allen doesn't have to keep up his rushing pace to qualify as playing the way he wants to or does already. Like, we're talking about over 100 rushes a year for 7 straight years. I mean, an insane 79 touchdowns. I don't think he needs to even eclipse half that for him necessarily to feel like he's diminished. I mean, it could just be sort of how you evolve. And so I would say that about him, that, I mean, Newton was out of the league at 33. I feel like we're not trying to scare anybody here. You don't sense that Allen gave off in this interview, which also, by the way, he talked about, I think probably very genuinely, just his devotion to trying to win a championship here, and you'll talk about that maybe next. But I don't think we're like near the end. How about that?
No, not at all. And, the Cam Newton comparison gets thrown around a lot. Maybe the better comparison, and I heard this from the Hall of Famer himself. I mean, he sees himself in Josh Allen. It's Brett Favre, who started 321 games in a row, including the playoffs. Josh Allen has the longest current streak for current quarterbacks at 142. I mean, he played the last month of the last season with a broken 5th metatarsal in his foot. I've never heard teammates talk about a quarterback the way they do Josh Allen. I mean, they would run through a wall for this guy. Been in a lot of different locker rooms, covered a lot of different teams. It's rare, it's special, and this is why. Like, he plays through pain. He plays through stuff that very few quarterbacks do. Let's just be real. There's been contemporaries of Josh Allen who miss games late in the season. And who are we to say what the pain threshold is for different players, different quarterbacks? Mm-hmm. All we know is Josh has played through a lot. And I think that endears himself to teammates. And Brett Favre was playing really damn good football late in his career. 2007 with the Packers, they're an OT interception away from the Super Bowl, but he's unbelievable that year. 2009 with the Vikings, same deal, an OT away from the Super Bowl, but he was incredible that year, one of his best statistical seasons. So very similar arms. Arm strength can age well. And say what we will about Aaron Rodgers, I mean, his arm's still really dang good, and he's starting a quarterback in this league. So I think the shelf life is strong for Josh Allen, and more than anything, physical. And I hope people have this takeaway when they read the story at golongtd.com. It's where Josh Allen is mentally. we all saw him in that post game with the emotions, with the tears, and you couldn't help but wonder, like, where is he right now? It looked like somebody who, frankly, didn't want to play for the Buffalo Bills, and who could blame him? I mean, it's just another playoff loss. Again, bashing your head against it in a different way. And so, to me, I think the takeaway is he is in a fantastic place in mind, body, and spirit with a new coach, a new stadium, a new receiver, and best of all, a new daughter. And you can just see how he's reborn, how this has completely rejuvenated him in a million ways, this next stage of his career as he's now a 30-year-old quarterback.
Not sure if you agree, Tyler, that emotion in the locker room was some reflection that he probably felt his coach was cooked after that loss. But I don't know, not everybody would subscribe to that theory. One thing about that game that stands out in his playoff career is that, he turned the ball over 4 times. And he would naturally have more frustration and whatever else emotionally, internally from his performance. We had that phase for a couple of years where we all tried to sort of correct the so-called national narrative that these playoff losses were on him at all. And you look at his stats, and he's like the best playoff quarterback we've ever had. But they're just, wild card games, divisional round games. But it wasn't like he stacked up turnovers, and he's had to kind of reverse or just try to correct that reputation from when he came into the league, that he was sort of a wild man and there'd be all these, quote, mistakes. But the Denver game was different in that way. The Denver game, there were 5 turnovers by the Bills, 2 lost fumbles from him, and 2 picks. So it's different. That game is different in his career, his past.
Totally. I think that you're on to it completely. And he started 15 playoff games. His passer rating of 101.5, it trails only Mahomes, Kurt Warner, and Bart Starr for quarterbacks with at least 5 starts. He's thrown for 3,915 yards, rushed for 767, scored 39 touchdowns, only has 6 interceptions. So, big picture, I don't know what else he can do in these games. He is doing enough. He shouldn't have to be perfect. I get it. Yes, the offense had the ball late in a lot of these games. At some point, the defense should throw him a bone and get a stop. And we've gone back to 13 seconds time and time again. These losses, they've left some scars. So it was probably the buildup of that all. And, yeah, feeling a little guilt. Like this time it's on me in his head. You know what, though? I think that Josh Allen is really approaching this season, 2026, at age 30, similar to how he approached the sport itself back at age 18. Like, he told me, I don't want to go down as the best to never win a championship. That's not something to be proud of. You get the sense he does kind of hear the whispers out there, the grumblings out there, that this one's on him, and he owns it. And out of high school, look, this is somebody that didn't have any stars, as everyone knows, no offers out of high school, and then he tears it up at JUCO. Talk to his JUCO OC for this story. Some great stories there. Got an offensive lineman, got kicked out of the dorm. Josh just took him in, let him live with him for a month. Even then, barely anybody wanted him when he sent out those 1,000+ emails. So I think he's approaching like this obstacle now, winning a Super Bowl, exactly how he approached just trying to play for a Division I college football team way back when. His emails, they're treated like a Nigerian prince scammer. Like nobody's even reading them, nobody's even caring, nobody wants them. And by force of will, gets to Wyoming and changes everything.
Yeah, maybe he needed to code those emails differently, because people might have just put them in they hit the spam folder or whatever. I mean, there have got to be some regrets. With Tyler Dunne, golongtd.com. So through all this, what do you think of their chances at this point with Joe Brady on top? I mean, I think there is the case to be made that it's the same play caller, and maybe much of what the Bills have been on offense will be similar. I mean, there's always a couple of new players. You have DJ Moore now, as you alluded to earlier. That's different. But also, depending on how you want to see it at this point, until we have games, you're going to make your own assumptions about what Brady couldn't do that he would have wanted to do, where he was not like the ultimate boss. in this. And that's been one of the more interesting discussions to have this offseason is like, all right, well, how much of that was there? So what's your feeling about how this is going to go?
There's no way to tell how any first-time NFL head coach is going to react because everything's great now, right? Sat down with Joe Brady, Brandon Beane, Josh Allen for different stories, and you can follow the logic of everything. You just don't know when the team is 4-4, whatever the record could be in the middle of the season, and scrutiny is getting louder. How does a head coach in that position react? How do they react in the course of a game? There's a minute left. It's 4th and 3. You're at midfield. You're running those numbers to your head, Mike, and you're going to talk about it on Monday morning. They've got to make that decision now, like in the snap of a finger. You can talk about it. You can think about it. And in all these head coach interviews, they simulated that experience, and they had a pretty good sense that Joe Brady could react the right way in those situations. You don't know until you see it. But I'll say this. I think that nothing in sports matters more. No relationship in sports matters more than the one between a head coach and a quarterback. And this relationship is really, really strong. And it started way back in 2022. Joe told the story of, he's walking into that room, first quarterback meeting. He'd just been fired by Carolina. And he's trying to basically hit reset on his coaching career. He's nervous. He's uptight, very rigid. And Josh Allen just cracks a joke that he couldn't repeat in our interview. And it completely lightens the mood. Everybody's laughing. They're off and running. I think that it's not just the case of an inmate running the asylum or anything like that either. I think that Joe Brady and Josh Allen have gotten to a point where there's a lot of love there. And it's a real relationship, so he can be hard on him now. And when he's hard on him, I think the quarterback will take it in the right way. Like Joe Brady said, I'll be yelling him on the sideline. There'll be times where I get on him. I think that what matters more in sports, they finally got right, and that's a hell of a place to start.
Well, that's one thing, not to just be the same way about Allen on every topic, or from every angle, but he just, to me, seems so believable. Like, why do the players respect him so much for durability, playing through the broken foot bone and everything else? Because he just seems so believable, whether it's winning a championship or the effort he's willing to put in. I wonder, do you think that that's changed from him? Was he always, maybe I'm wrong in the first place, but if I'm not, did he become this player where, okay, well, I'm good and I'm the quarterback, so it has to be that I set the standard here. I'm willing to do that. Did that evolve in him in your mind, or did he sort of show up that way?
I think it's really innate. It's in him. He's been this way since Fireball, right on to JUCO,
okay.
right on to Wyoming to Buffalo. I asked him where that toughness comes from, and it really does start back there on the ranch, right? Working for his dad, seeing him move an irrigation pipe and doing God knows what to keep that farm going through all those different droughts. I think that toughness is absolutely just who he is, and he's not going to think twice if he can play, unless something is broken, fractured. You literally can't do a thing. If you can shoot yourself up and throw yourself out there, and you're willing to deal with the pain on Monday when the pain meds wear off. Some players are willing to make that negotiation with the sport, and some aren't. And Josh Allen's always been the type that has been, I think.
GoLongTD.com is more than just Josh Allen and Joe Brady, as Tyler has proven for years now. What's next for you this summer?
Yeah, so I've been traveling a lot, Mike. I went to,
Minnesota.
Where the heck have I been? Down to Miami for a few days. I mean, that's an interesting team. They're eating almost $200 million to move on from all these players starting from scratch. So it was really interesting to talk to players and some sources around that team to see what in the hell happened with Tua, Mike McDaniel, and a really promising group to now completely starting over. So that's a story we'll have down the line. I was in Minnesota watching Kyler Murray. I mean, can you just install this former number one pick who washed out in Arizona Basically, they're looking for the next Sam Darnold, right? If only they had Sam Darnold in the building. But that's an interesting team, and I'll be heading out to Detroit in the future. God, they're kind of the forgotten group, so definitely all over the place, and try to cover that league through different long-form lens and stuff that's out there.
Talking about Allen and just the last decade of quarterbacks in the NFL, to think there could possibly be a sentence that holds water. We're looking for the next Sam Darnold. That's where we're at as an organization. But I get it. I mean, Super Bowl winner. That's so funny, isn't it? I mean, that's a rag on him, but for Allen not to have been to one and Jackson not to have been to one with their stacks of MVP awards, and here you've got Darnold, and he was not a passenger. I mean, he was great.
Yeah.
So, really interesting.
I mean, they're hoisting him on their shoulders when they beat Green Bay in Minnesota late that season.
Yeah, he's got to
They're
go.
throwing water all over the place. They're singing "Many Men" by 50 Cent. Like, everything's great. And then they lose the next week. They lose in the playoffs. There's the door. It is a crazy sports story. You had him in your building.
Love it. Tyler, thank you very much for today. GoLongTD.com for everybody tuning in. Talk to you next time.
Anytime, man. Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. Tyler Dunn with us on the West Her Hotline, 803-0550. Any take there on Allen or the upcoming season you want to call in with? Sounds good to me. Hope to talk to Sal next hour. Lines open for your calls now. Bulldog is off. Back tomorrow. I'm Mike Schopp, and this is WGR.
Plenty of drama in the World Cup today. We'll get to that here in just a moment. First up, though, the NHL is on to the offseason. Carolina hoists this year's Stanley Cup. And next up, it is going to be the draft, which is held right here in Buffalo. It's going to be going on next Friday and Saturday. And then free agency, that's going to begin on July 1st. And for more on this upcoming offseason, both Paul Hamilton and Brayton Wilson have pieces up at our website, WGR550.com. Now to the World Cup. Cape Verde, led by 40-year-old goalie Vozinha, draw 0-0 with tournament favorites Spain down Atlanta. Vozinha had 7 saves on the game, and this was Cape Verde's first ever match in the World Cup. They get a point out of that. Fellow Group H nations, Saudi Arabia and Uruguay, will face off at 6 o'clock. Currently going on right now, we are in a hydration break in the second half, but Egypt and Belgium tied 1-1, and Belgium gets a goal to tie it up as Romelu Lukaku comes on and scores in the same minute he had come on. Then at 9 o'clock, we'll have New Zealand squaring off against Iran. In the NFL, Falcons defensive end James Pierce returned to Falcons facility today. This is the first time he has been there since being charged with aggravated battery and fleeing law enforcement back on February 7th. Pierce is not expected to speak with the media, but he is expected to take part in mandatory minicamp this week. And then the Jets, they have locked in guard Joe Tippmann to a 4-year, $66.4 million deal. $34.9 million of that is guaranteed. That's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
You're going to get to the Super Bowl first, which they haven't done this era, and then win it. You're not going to do it with a quarterback who is playing it safe. You're going to do it with Josh Allen stiff-arming and hurdling and taking that chance in the double coverage. You need your quarterback playing purely as he's always intended to play. You know, how long does it last? Who the hell knows? You know, we've seen the likes of Cam Newton and to Mike Vick, quarterbacks who do use their legs more than most. Things can fall off, into your late 30s. Josh Allen's proven people wrong time and time again. I don't think he's close to falling off that cliff.
Tyler Dunn, who sat down with Allen and wrote a piece about him at golongtd.com. It's an interesting, if not a little bit, not depressing, but sort of harrowing thought, like the Bills post-Allen, to ponder. You just have no idea how this is going to play out. And I don't know Allen, so I can't give you anything on, like, how he's feeling, anything past what Tyler wrote, and that's from Allen's mouth. Just this idea that he'll play as long as he can do it the way he wants to do it, whatever that means. I mean, I could see, you have to know, Allen is really set up for life in all these different ventures and, whatever, sports, maybe ownership and whatever in like the movie world, just sort of he's positioned to have a very prosperous post-football life and career financially. I'm not saying that has to be satisfying, but I think that part that we know of his life and his wealth is probably or can be relevant to whatever he decides to do as a player. We know that football players take a beating, and here's a guy that does so maybe to an extent that goes beyond others, but a lot of the post-career damage that you hear about is from head hits, and I don't know if we have that. We probably have some. He takes such a beating from players and delivers one as well. So there's all kinds of different variables, and then you have the championship piece that does not exist in the same way, like outwardly, publicly, that it does for players who play any other position but quarterback. Quarterbacks, this can also be something that doesn't mean anything to him in terms of how he feels after retirement, because he's got, to this point of his career, to say the very least, nothing to apologize for as a player. No one really blames him for the Bills not winning a championship with Allen at the helm, right? So just to be real about it. But no other position on the field comes with that particular kind of scrutiny, where if you didn't win, it's, to some, looked at as a shortcoming, a failure. No running back, right? No running back ever has been thought of in a negative light because his team didn't win. I don't even know where to start. I guess you could start with Thurman Thomas, as good an example as any, and I've never thought that. And I grew up with those teams and know him and all of it. Like, you don't hear anybody say that. You can hear it about Kelly, but you don't hear it about Thomas. Like, that there was something lacking because the Bills didn't win when he was here. I mean, I know that there were a couple of moments where you might have thought that, but it doesn't reflect on position players other than quarterback at all to the same extent. But quarterbacks have to live with it. Peyton Manning had to live with it. Then he won. And Dan Marino has been retired for more than 25 years. And one of the first things I think that comes up in most conversations about him is, but he didn't win. And it's like something, this is nothing you don't know already, but it's something that sticks to him in a way that it would not to any other player who played any other position on the field. On the same teams, even. Nobody talks about Mark Duper. Like, oh, well, he didn't win a championship. So that's assuming he didn't playing for someone else. I'm not even sure. It just doesn't work that way. I think these days, like the last couple of decades, we've gotten better through statistics and more sophisticated analysis and more people who have a voice in all of this, including Tyler, that know better than to just settle for any sort of simple narrative that the quarterback didn't win a championship, therefore he's less than. I think now we are better at this than we used to be in like Marino's days. And I don't know. I don't really care about Dan Marino personally, but maybe that's something that works for him or means something to him. Is that now we're not as much sort of stuck to the old ideas that a quarterback has to win. Elway, for most of his career was the guy for all his talents that didn't. And then he did. And so that piece is interesting to think about with Allen as he gets older and feels whatever he feels about his body and his life away from football and all that stuff. We just can't predict it. We can't know that much about how that's going to go. Ideally, he wins one, and then all that changes, and there's no such pressure on him, if he feels it anyway, to win one for his own sake, for his own legacy. Get one and then, move on. And it's, as has always been true since they both entered the league, so interestingly, together, this is the same with Lamar Jackson. And they both go into 2026 with new coaches as division favorites anyway. And I think to some extent, the idea that, at least apart from each other as rivals, that the conference is more available. Now, that doesn't have to be right. But you had last year, which made it, I'm sure, all the more frustrating to so many Bills and Ravens fans, the knowledge that Kansas City fell off the map, and it ended up being New England and Denver in the AFC Championship game, and not the Bills or the Ravens. And the Ravens, they didn't even get there to the playoffs. You had Pittsburgh because of like the very, very last seconds of they missed a field goal and then they're out. But I don't think they were likely to make a run anyway. You never know. Just so amazing that I remember talking to Nick Costos a couple of times from You Better You Bet on Odyssey. Just he would bring up, the first time he brought it up was sort of news to me. The second time he came on and we referred to it, how I think it was that no coach and quarterback tandem had ever lasted as long as either McDermott and Allen or Harbaugh and Jackson without getting to a Super Bowl or even winning one, maybe it was, and then eventually doing it. Like there's a shelf life to it, and you get to however much, 7 years, whatever it is. No, not that it can't happen, but no combination of quarterback and coach ever did it if they hadn't done it by then. Maybe it was 6 years. I don't even know. I mean, McDermott and Allen ran 18 to 25. So both teams have new situations now. And I was kind of hoping they would play week 1 again. Or even Pittsburgh involved with Baltimore. The Bills don't play Pittsburgh. But just for the topic of like these teams that have had these same coaches and been so successful for so long, now having new frontmen. Let's go to Bill here. Hi, Bill.
Hey, just to piggyback on what you've been saying, it always bothered me because I always thought Marino was one of the best, if not the best throwers of football that I've ever seen. He was unbelievable out there.
Yeah.
And he gets tagged with that. But like you brought up Elway, and you know as well as most, like Elway, when he was at his best throwing the football, he didn't win the Super Bowl. And then he won later, but it was because Terrell Davis had a lot to do with that running the football. I think he even won MVP one year, Terrell Davis. But like he won with him, but now he gets touted as a Super Bowl champion quarterback. But at the end of the day, you know, it wasn't really him at his best. It was more of a different kind of style of playing football. And nowadays, like, I think it's more so on the quarterback nowadays than the old days, just because the rules favor the quarterback now more. And you'll even hear like Marino and Aikman say, well, if I could have played now, I could have played another 10 years. And it's a lot easier to throw the football because you can't do hands on the receivers. You're not hitting them over the middle. And they throw the ball even more now than they did before. It's more towards scoring points, and the NFL wants hands off, and it's harder to play defense now. So I think now it does lay on the quarterback's feet more, that if you don't win one, I think it's a bigger deal than it was even back in the day.
Interesting. Well, thanks, Bill. One thing about the Bills and Allen in his example is, you mentioned Terrell Davis. I agree completely with that. It wasn't even like Elway's peak when they won. We tried to talk ourselves into last year, by the way, that the Bills, or the year before even also, that the Bills could still win it despite not being at their very best, because you have examples of that happening all through the history of the league. They did just give Josh Allen the rushing leader in the league. So that's what makes his and the Bills' story to this point just a little bit more than average, you know, like history has lots of quarterbacks, Steve Young, I mean, lots of guys that needed many years before they could do it. But the Denver comp is, you know, fair and interesting in how Terrell Davis represents the sea change in the Broncos' fortunes. And, you know, 2 years ago, James Cook led the league in touchdowns, and last year he led the league in yards. And then he ended up on the Broncos and not the Chiefs or the Ravens or even the Bengals, and went down. So that's just like how grueling it is and how frustrating it's got to be for them, and you know how it is for fans. Like, well, what is it going to take then? I've got the rushing leader. I got Kansas City and Baltimore both out of the way, not even in the playoffs. Now tell me, what do I need this time? I think what you need is to just keep running it back and get the right bounce, get the right call, the right execution, the right opponent at the right time, whatever it has to be to get them through. But you can't really be too specific about that. I mean, so like, I remember last year, all offseason, this is now on the heels of the fourth Bills playoff loss to Kansas City in 5 years? When they went to Kansas City in the AFC Championship and lost 2 years ago. Like, what do you even do with this? What do you even say? All I need to do is have the same season again, and next year not fall down on 4th and 1, or have Dalton Kincaid not fall down, slip, and drop the ball. Like, just something super specific is going to swing it. This last year it was Brandon Cooks and a very controversial ruling. Like something, and that wasn't even for the Super Bowl, by the way. How do you even talk about that? Well, what I need next year is for DJ Moore to not drop a pass. Like, it's just too specific to even know what to say about it. They have all the pieces you need to win. The fact that their defense wavered or their receivers have been suspect, they've still been good enough to win. They just haven't won. we'll just try again this time and see what happens. Thanks again, Bill. Mike Schopp here. Sal coming up at the top of the hour. This is WGR. Well, I'm not going to make it to the end, but I'm sort of liking making the effort of watching every World Cup game. I had this yesterday. It was first up yesterday, like noon or 1. I was shopping or shopping, some call it that. I was thinking to myself, like, I got to get done here because I want to be able to see some of this game. Was it Netherlands, Japan? That wasn't first up yesterday, was it?
Curacao and Germany was first up.
Oh, yeah, okay, because I heard the Curacao goal for my car. That's right. I got to get home just to check this box, so I will have seen some of this game. And I watched 10 minutes of it, and Germany scored 2 or 3 times. I'm like, all right, well, I don't need to stay here for the rest of it. That was one where it was interesting for a minute, and then the second half, Germany scored like immediately in the second half for 4-1. All right, well, this would be a good time to do some prep for dinner. But so far, so good. Like, I intentionally stayed up for Australia the other night, even though I was falling asleep during the previous game. I just got to make it to the kick. I want to see anthems. I want to see the kickoff, Australia and Turkey. Just make sure I make it, and I did in 10 minutes of it. Turned it off. I didn't see any goals. This game here today, this earlier one today with Spain, this weekend is going to end it because I'll be driving a lot. I feel like there's no chance. Maybe on my phone or something. I want to be able to watch every game, not the whole thing, but I just love it so much. And any sort of finding it annoying that they added 50% more teams this year, now I'm just happy that there's that many more games. I'm that guy now. I didn't need a 7th wild card team in football or whatever. I didn't need all of it. I always say, like, they gave us all this. We didn't even want it. Nobody needed 48 teams in World Cup. Bring it on. Give me Curacao. Give me Cabo Verde. Give me New Zealand later. All of it. I'm here for it. Let's go. Sal Capaccio after the break on WGR.
Drama-filled day at the World Cup with still 2 more games to go. We'll get to that, though, in just a moment. But first up, the NHL. We are officially onto the offseason. Carolina is the team that hosts this year's Stanley Cup. And the 2026 draft, which is going to be held here in Buffalo, is up next. That's next Friday and Saturday, while free agency, that is going to begin on July 1st. And then for more on the upcoming offseason, both Paul Hamilton and Brayton Wilson have pieces up at our website, WGR550.com. Now to the World Cup. They started with Cape Verde, led by 40-year-old goaltender Vozinha, drawing 0-0 with tournament favorites Spain down in Atlanta. Vozinha made 7 saves in that game in what was Cape Verde's first ever match in a World Cup. Fellow Group H nations, Saudi Arabia and Uruguay, are going to face off in just about an hour at 6. We did have a game just wrap up here. Egypt and Belgium, they tie 1-1. Egypt now still looking for their first ever World Cup victory. And then the final game of the night will be at 9 o'clock. New Zealand, they square off against Iran. In the NFL, Falcons defensive end James Pierce returned to Falcons facility today. This is the first time he has been there since being charged with aggravated battery and fleeing law enforcement all the way back on February 7th. Pierce will not speak with the media, but he is expected to take part in mandatory minicamp this week. The Jets have locked in guard Joe Tippmann to a 4-year, $66.4 million deal. $34.9 million of that is guaranteed. Do stay tuned. Sal Capaccio is going to join the show next for more on the NFL. And then in baseball, the Mets, they are in Cincinnati against the Reds. First pitch tonight at 7:10. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
Two games, 2 ties. Spain, Cabo Verde, and then Egypt, Belgium. Belgium rudely denying Egypt its first World Cup win. Careful with all those firsts. They went from 32 teams for many years to 48. It's the smallest country ever. It's the first time they've ever. All that stuff, just be careful with that. Don't stare directly at it because they have added half many more teams to the field than have ever been. I mean, I love it. I just got done saying so. I'm here for all of it, even if it is 48 teams. Now we'll go to 64, right? Or what did basketball do? College basketball went to 70 some number, 76, 78. Nobody needed it, just like many things, but they still gave it to us. This one, I'm pleading the fifth because I'm loving it. Give me more Cabo Verde. I know where it is on a map. I'm bragging about it. Let's go. I want to see it. New Zealand and Iran. Throw out the record books. There are none. There were no record books between Belgium and Egypt. There are no record books with New Zealand and Iran. Is that the game? Is that 9 o'clock?
That's 9 o'clock.
What's next? Saudi Arabia and
Uruguay.
Former World Cup winner. 1930? Oh, I've got to ask Paul about what that was like. That's a cheap shot. Very, very rude of me. Sal Capaccio, I think, on the Western Hotline. Sal, we got you?
You do have me. I have to tell you, I said to Zach, Zach, I'm playing in this golf event today for Hope Totes out of Transit Valley. I'm with Melissa Holmes of Channel 2, our friend Tony Nasca from Signals, and Elliot Skursky, who you know is a great, great golfer, Melissa's son. And I'm telling you this story because I said, you know what? I have one shot left. Let me put the phone down and I'll get on with Mike. We're on the last hole. And I'm not kidding. I just hold it out from 85 yards, Mike. What?
Wow.
It's pretty cool. I'm very, very happy. And we're laughing because I said I have to just take this one last shot, and that just happened.
Do it again. I only, to do it once, we can all do. No, that's pretty cool. Now you don't have to putt and put the phone down again during our conversation either.
I don't, and that's right. And I'm not going to putt. And I had said to Elliot, I said, it's a scramble. I said, Elliot, you can just putt twice, just putt for me because I'll be talking to Mike. But what was funny is after that happened, I literally just put my club in the bag. I said, nice playing with you guys. And I shook hands because we're done.
Love that. What a walk-off. What a mic drop. That is. Good job.
Unbelievable. It was pretty cool.
Did you guys make sure to take hydration breaks today?
Not really. I think actually out here it was a little cool out here today, man. Like very.
So
Different. Yes.
No,
I was talking because of the soccer. That's right.
At World Cup, they don't care. It's not that hot in a lot of these games. They're just doing it anyway. They're indoors, and they're taking
That's right.
because they're paid for. They're paid for. Well, I know there's no – thanks for this. I know there's no Bills this week or for a while, but I was talking with Tyler Dunn today about Josh Allen and his career, and Tyler had that sit-down with him, and there was that one quote about, Allen's future that raised some eyebrows. Do you think – so I then went into some stuff about just how, quarterbacks that haven't won championships are kind of like in a certain bucket. Do you think, like I do, that we've kind of evolved as fans to a point, and this isn't to, protect Josh Allen at all, but that we don't really judge that as harshly as maybe we did years ago?
You mean judge what part as harshly as we did?
A quarterback that doesn't have a championship.
Okay, yeah, winning Super Bowl. That's what I thought. I think in a lot of ways it's harsh. It's like judged even more harshly by some people because they always want to make comparisons. And it's, well, this guy has one and that guy has one. Even Trent Dilfer won one. I mean, come on, right? We all know that that's ridiculous to think about. But I do think that we've evolved, at least, I think, analytically, in analytics world, of understanding how good these guys are with the numbers and really kind of giving them maybe a little bit more of their due. Although I still think that the championships to some people matter far too much. Mm-hmm. And I know that it can elevate you. I agree with that. It should elevate you. Like you win, like it's got to put you, higher, a little bit higher up, but it shouldn't penalize you if you never win one when you're great.
I would say about Dan Marino, who might be like the best example of this player, that when he was playing, and you were around, when he was playing, it was held against him very strongly that Miami only went to the one and then didn't win. And it felt to me, maybe that's being in Buffalo a little bit, Sal, but it felt to me that like that was the thing about Marino that you just had to say, that he didn't have it. And now I feel like maybe people will say, well, he was maybe the best ever, and not, as an example of this point, like not judge him as harshly for not winning like we would have then.
It's funny. For me, this guy was Warren Moon more than it was Marino.
Okay.
I think, Marino had that certainly attached to him from a lot of people, and we all heard it. But I don't know. I guess from my perspective, it was always like him and Kelly were just so awesome, and I never held it against Marino because Kelly never won one, and Kelly had gone to 4. We know that, but that's the point for me about this. I think we in Buffalo might have a unique perspective on this, Mike. And for me, at least, I think I might be different than a lot of people because our guys never won one, and they were great. Jim Kelly never won one. And I mean, I know Thurman and Andre, I'm below me get here, but the quarterback specifically never won a Super Bowl. And when anybody tells me about this, I'm like, yeah, but I know how good those guys were, and they still never won one. So I think when Kelly and Marino were going through it together, and even Elway, I never really thought of Marino or Elway as like docking them because my guy didn't win one either. For some reason, I did Warren Moon. I think maybe it's just because he had gone to the CFL and he had all these incredible numbers, and he comes back to the NFL, and then the comeback happens and all of that. But even him, I just never really thought less of those guys really as anybody else because I knew how tough it was because Kelly never did it.
You know what else is interesting about that? And this is comparable to now when you think of, well, Mahomes is the exception, getting there and winning 3 times, but Allen, Jackson, the AFC, and all the great quarterbacks in the AFC, what helped Kelly was that at least he got there and 4 times in a row, which was a record and still is. Whereas Marino and Elway had been, Moon, you mentioned, didn't get there. It almost, in a twisted way, helped Kelly in these comparisons because the NFC won like 14 Super Bowls in a row from 83 until Elway against Green Bay, I think is the streak. So it wasn't like anybody else in the AFC, Marino and Moon, to name 2, were winning either. Like it was all Dallas and San Francisco for most of that time. So, yeah, that probably helped. Well,
yeah, getting there certainly mattered. I think because Elway also got to 3 of them, right, and didn't win. And it was always, but again, I always felt weird. To me, I always felt weird.
negatively saying anything or impacting them, Marino or Elway because of Kelly. Like, I'm like, I can't do that because my guy, like, if I'm saying about them, then I have to say that about my guy, and I never wanted to do that.
Yeah. With Sal Capaccio, Mike Schopp here, Bulldog is off today. Well, you know Alan as well as you know him. What do you think all of this means to him in terms of his career to this point, knowing that he's not retiring, just thinking about his going into, year 9 of his career, turning 30, new coach now. How much do you think it matters to him this point, not winning a championship yet?
Now, when you ask that, do you mean
Personally.
legacy?
Yeah, personally, like in terms of how
Right.
is he somebody that you think maybe it sort of grinds at him that either he would be, I don't know, I don't want to like overstate it here, but misunderstood or just not respected well enough because he doesn't have that ring yet?
I don't know. I feel weird answering that, like, how Josh might feel personally, but all I can tell you is from just the way that he speaks about this issue and topic, which is if you go right back to Tyler's article, which is how much Josh understands, I think, the gravity of winning it for this city and this team and what that would matter and what that would mean. And I think he takes it more from that standpoint than he does personally, but he's also human. I can't imagine anybody in his position, whether that's Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and I know that not everybody there is equal as far as some of the things they've done in numbers or whatever. I mean, Lamar's got a couple MVPs and everything. I would think that they would all have that. That's what gets them to where they are. Having that I'm not going to call it ego, but that, place of, hey, I know that I'm just as good as these guys winning and I haven't. And that's what puts you over the top in this particular industry. That's what puts your name above everybody else, is winning championships and wearing a ring, having a Lombardi trophy. I'm sure in some capacity it has to, as you say, grind on you or whatever. But I also think, I think Josh also knows he's Josh Allen and he's accomplished a whole hell of a lot more at this game than, 95% of the quarterbacks who have ever existed. So that I'm sure helps. But man, how can you not? If you're a quarterback in the NFL, I don't care if you're Josh Allen or, somebody who never really was a legitimate starter their whole life, not think about what it would be like if you had one. Right.
And that's just the reality that you and I both understand well, that this is different for quarterbacks than anybody else.
Yeah.
I can't think of any player who wasn't a quarterback where I would even think of whether they won a championship that would have any, role in defining their careers. Like, just nobody. If you
do you think about that with goalies?
Not really. I really don't think about it with anybody in any sport. As far I think, it's just, to me, I wanted to do this with Bulldog last week. I'm glad you asked that question and we didn't. But you look up goalies. We talked about it with Marty Baron actually on Friday. I'm not sure he even understood what I was going for. I think we agreed with each other. Like the guys the Aiden Hills of the world, so to speak, Antti Niemi, these guys that just were just guys until they won. And so I never cared, since you asked, I never cared that Frederick Anderson didn't have good playoff performances in the past. I think games are games. And most of these guys are able to focus on the job rather than get distracted by, wow, what is this? I think once you lace them up, so to speak, it's pretty much like that. But I don't know. What's your perspective on that? Do you think most pro athletes see the playoffs as very different?
Yeah, I think that many do see it that way, but I don't think that the goaltender rises to the level of the quarterback in anybody's eyes, really, about getting one. When we talk about sports, I do think, however, goalie still matters in this regard. Maybe second most of all the positions. It's still not. There's still a big gap. Quarterback's the most, but you're not going to talk about a first baseman or a pitcher. Pitcher, I guess, in baseball might be the closest thing. Mm-hmm. But goalie does matter for this. And I think about Hasek, right, which is, he never got one in Buffalo. He finally did leave. When he left, he got one. And it kind of mattered that the greatest goalie ever got a Stanley Cup. Like, what would that sound like if we say he's the greatest goalie ever and he didn't have a Stanley Cup? I think that matters for a goaltender who's that level. When you're that high up, when you win Vezina trophies, I do think it matters that you add that to your resume, that you're a Stanley Cup winning goalie, that you carried a team, or at least were a big part of helping a team win a Stanley Cup. It doesn't mean that the guys who weren't as good, who won one, are on your level, but I do think it matters for their legacy to have that next to your name more than it does in almost any other position in sports except for quarterback.
Yep. It definitely matters to us on the outside. And, it helps to drive what we do for a living. Talking about all this stuff is legacy stuff. I was looking up, when you started the talk there about goalies, I was looking up Clayton Kershaw. Because Kershaw was somebody that was one of the best around for many years, but had a playoff results stigma about him. And I wanted always to say about him, he's going to get it done one of these times. You just have to keep making it and giving him a chance. And that happened when they won. The Dodgers won in 2020, and he was fabulous. But before that, in his career, he had tough times in the postseason. One other thing about the playoffs is, guess what? No matter what the sport is, you're playing against better teams than you do in the regular season. So the competition gets tough. All of this, back to Alan Sal, just makes, not that this is a new subject, but it just makes the Denver loss that much tougher. Because you didn't have Kansas City, you didn't have Baltimore, you had 5 turnovers, and he was 4 of them in this, including the controversial one at the end with Cooks. I mean, that counts, though. Like, this was different. We had gotten pretty good at pushing back against the ESPN people for a while there with, actually, his playoff performances have been super, but then Denver really wasn't.
No, I agree with that, and I'm with you on the whole, I would do the same thing. Well, wait a minute, you guys really don't know what you're talking about. Take a look at what he's actually done in the playoffs. Look at his playoff numbers. He actually had, probably not anymore, I haven't done this, going into the last year's playoffs, he had the greatest touchdown to interception ratio of any quarterback who's ever played with the amount of games or starts or passes or whatever, a good amount, which is incredible to think about because it's Josh Allen who had this reputation coming in the league. And when he was a rookie, he would turn the ball over and he still was kind of wild and haphazard sometimes. And he still had this incredible TD to interception ratio. I doubt it is anymore, after last year in the playoffs. But either way, the point is it was definitely frustrating to have to try to point that out to people. And now it's not as easy to point out to people because they kind of have scoreboard just from that game. And even though we know that that's not a representation of who he's been throughout most of his, playoff life.
Obviously, there are differences. It's a difference to win a Super Bowl and to make it. This goes back to the Kelly stuff. But it is a different conversation this year, Sal, from what it had been for the last 2 or 3 years with, Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, right? You have Mahomes, who's gotten there and won multiple times. Then you have Allen and Jackson, who win their MVPs but have fallen short. And then you have Burrow. He would be right there too, having made one. You've got this hierarchy. Now, it's a much different look to the overall, I think. Not that those other guys aren't still good or great, but you have May now who has been, and he's much younger than those other guys. You have Herbert and Lawrence, who might be their time. I don't know if this isn't also Stroud. I wouldn't want to put Stroud on the same level as those guys, I think. And then also Bo Nix. So it's a bigger group of quarterbacks this year. It's not every team's quarterback in the AFC, but it's a bigger group of guys that you could have these conversations about what is on the line for them. There's always this, I guess, with football, like we're talking about, for a quarterback to make it. But instead of having maybe 4 guys in the AFC where you talk, these are who you talk about, these are the players. Now it's closer to 10.
Yeah, for sure. And partly because it seems like, and I think you could probably do the research on this and look at the numbers, and maybe that's something I'll even do tonight now that I'm thinking about it. Seems like every time there's a new, really hot young quarterback come to the league, goes to an AFC team, except for maybe Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
I guess Jordan Love, but I don't even think he counts considering when he was drafted and the situation there. But it always seems like it's the AFC getting this new young quarterback that now you have to compete with. And it's Justin Herbert and, who comes in a few years ago. And even Tua, it doesn't work out there, whatever. Now you have Drake May that comes in. Now you have Bo Nix that comes in. Cam Ward from last year, right? I mean, it just seems like it's the AFC all the time that's getting this new crop where, yeah, there's a guy here or the guy there for the NFC, but it feels like the quarterbacks that have to get through in the AFC are just so much tougher on a yearly basis.
Why is that? Is that going to be a coincidence if I think this through, or is there – I mean, you have Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels is this in the NFC, but, I mean, have certain of these teams in the NFC just gone for retreads? Bryce Young, but he hasn't hit, so you have him. But, Tampa –
Just not finishing. I mean, they're not finishing in spots in the draft to coincide. I think it's just kind of coincidence, to be quite honest with you.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting to think about, even though camp is still, 45 days away? I lost count of the actual I lost count of the actual days.
5 months. No, just kidding.
It seems like it, but we'll get there. Just a quick cap on Allen here. I know we've talked about it before, but Allen and Joe Brady, Sal. So, how simpatico are the two of them as we go into a new era here with Brady as the head coach?
Well, I think very much. I think, number one, let's start with the fact that I don't think Joe Brady gets this job without a Josh Allen endorsement. Mm-hmm. Again, he's not picking the coach. It's not his call. But if he says no, I don't think it's happening. And the fact that the Bills have had this really great offense for the last few years, of course, is mainly due to Josh Allen, but they've had Joe Brady as their offensive coordinator, and I think that's part of the reason why he becomes the head coach, because they don't want to lose that. They don't want to lose their fastball, so to speak. That's where they're really good. They've decided, I think, internally that where their failings have mostly been on defense, so they removed the person running the defense, which happens to be the head coach, so they now have a new head coach. That being said, Joe has been with Josh now for several years, position coach, coordinator. They've developed a relationship. They've developed a bond. There's been a lot of talk about, can you even coach him hard enough? And that was a big thing when he was hired. And both guys, will say absolutely, because they have a good relationship. They can basically have those tough conversations when tough conversations have to happen. So I do believe that's the case. And I do also believe that Joe will give Josh ownership. And I'm not saying Sean McDermott wouldn't give Josh ownership, but let's be honest. We know that Sean had a certain philosophy to make sure that the team played under a certain structure. And if that meant that Joe had to call, plays in a certain manner, I'm not saying a play-to-play basis. I mean a philosophical way of calling plays, depending on, who you're playing and what the situation is. And Josh Allen playing a certain way, that was going to happen. And I think Joe is going to be a little more open to letting Josh kind of be a little bit more determining in that regard. And I think that's going to lead to Josh Allen. Maybe we see a little more variance too. Maybe we do see some more turnovers, but also bigger numbers from Josh. I'm super interested in that. I
would love to see it. Actually, I would sign for it. It'd be fun at least, and they'll probably be good anyway. So I'd love to see that. So 85 yards. I mean, did somebody go take the flag out for this shot before you hit it, or did you run it in? Did you bounce it in?
It's a scramble. So we all were. And listen, it was 85 to center, and Elliot Skursky, great golfer, 12 years old, and he said it's 73 to the pin is what he said before we hit. It's a red pin. And okay, so I had a 60-degree wedge, and I hit the ball a little lighter than I normally would, and it hit the green, and it just kept rolling. We're all looking at it, and literally I'm listening to you on the phone while this is happening.
Yes.
It's next because it's on the speakerphone. I'm like, I got to go talk to Mike. And it starts rolling. We're all like, oh, my God. And then it went in. And everybody, raised up and screamed and high-fived and all that. And then while I was talking with you within the first couple minutes, Elliot basically waved me over to no, you come get the ball in the cup. That's your ball. You hit it, which was really cool. So I did that.
Nice. Well, congrats on that. Enjoy the night. You're part of the presentation tonight, the banquet, I'm sure.
Yeah. Here again, like I said, Hope Totes. It's a great organization doing a lot of great things. And here, Melissa Holmes from Channel 2. She's part of the program tonight, and we played golf together, and it was a really fun day for a good cause.
Thanks for fitting me in. Congrats on the shot, and make sure you have me on speakerphone anytime you play golf in the future. Obviously, it goes well for you.
I love it. You got it, buddy.
All
Thanks.
Right. Bye. Sal Capaccio, his appearances on WGR, brought to you by Outlet Liquor. Your place to buy a case. The place, in fact, to buy a case. OutletLiquor.com. Allen and legacy stuff, one of our topics today, 803-0550 to say what you are thinking. Bulldog is not here, so you don't have to worry about him. Expect him back tomorrow. Love watching the World Cup, too. We're in between games right now, so that's fine. I can focus on this, talking to you fine folks right now. The update, and then we'll talk some more. Lines open for your calls. I'm Mike Schopp, and this is WGR.
We've been living in sin so long, all the feels are gone. Fella stopped me on the street last night, said everything's alright. Roller coaster, make it through the day upright. It seems your meal ticket is gone, but life goes on. I could never imagine something better. Yeah, right. Now you're cooking on high heat in the middle of the street. Roller coaster, take me to a better time. Let's go. All sing your high line with the roller coaster of life. Yeah. It's time to all choose your timeline on the roller coaster of life. You seem to easily forget how to place your bet. When everyday life gets you down, you gotta steal the crown. Got to own it. Don't bitch and moan about it, please. God forbid you scrape your knees, and it's nothing to sneeze at. Oh, I've told you over and over again. You gotta get both hands around it and make your own plans. Roller coaster, it's taking over, it's about time. Oh, all sing your high line on the roller coaster of life. You've got to all choose your timeline with the roller coaster of life. I want to go down the rabbit hole, down the rabbit hole. to leave. Oh, roller coaster. Oh, roller coaster.
The NHL is on to the offseason. Carolina hoists this year's Stanley Cup, and next up is going to be the 2026 draft. It's going to be held here in Buffalo. That'll be going on next Friday and Saturday. Following that, we'll have free agency. That'll begin on July 1st. And for more on this upcoming offseason, both Paul Hamilton and Brayton Wilson have pieces up at our website, WGR550.com. Also with the NHL, the league is going to begin their investigations into Mike Babcock and his resignation back in 2023 with Columbus, as the Oilers do appear wanting to hire Babcock as their next head coach. Now to the World Cup, as we are in a bit of a break here between games 2 and 3. Some of the results from earlier today. Cape Verde gets a 0-0 draw with tournament favorites Spain down in Atlanta. That was Cape Verde's first ever match in a World Cup. The next game is going to be fellow Group H nations, Saudi Arabia and Uruguay. That'll be at 6. Egypt and Belgium did wrap up. That finished in a tie 1-1. And then the night will end at 9 o'clock. New Zealand, they square off against Iran. Over in football, the Jets have locked in guard Joe Tippmann to a 4-year, $66.4 million deal. $34.9 million of that is guaranteed. And then in baseball, the Mets, they are in Cincinnati. They take on the Reds with first pitch just after 7:10. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
7.5 to go. De'Aaron Fox across midcourt with 5. Left wing handoff to Wembanyama with 2. Takes a 3 that he misses too strong. It's happening, Knicks fans. It's happening. It's been 53 years. But for this moment, it was well worth the wait.
Are we sure about that? I get it. It's what you say, right? It was worth the wait. 53 years, though. It's almost like my whole life. I'd rather not win one title every 50 years if I could avoid it. But all right. I'm not a hater. I think the Knicks story is really cool. I like that with the Knicks and the Hurricanes both. Say what you want about Carolina bitterness. They were both, if this means anything to you, they were both very much worthy champions. These were not fluke teams. I mean, the Knicks weren't the favorite that Oklahoma City was, right? Or even, Boston? Cleveland? Like, they were not the favorite. But they killed it. Like, they were not a team at all that you would say was lucky. And they did the thing that we love the most in sports, which was, like, be good at the end of games. And the Spurs were not. And the Spurs weren't even, like, they did great to get to the finals. But then, I mean, to have that series, that would hurt, where you're ahead in, like, every game, sometimes, like, by big margins, and you can't get home. That would be tough. But good for the Knicks. Good for their fans. I said last week at one point, it's New York City, and that can be insufferable. I guess anybody could be. But I feel like Knick fans deserve to be as loud and obnoxious about this as anybody. It is 53 years. They are or were great. And that's the ultimate scoreboard kind of year and title and run. Sometimes teams back into wins and rounds. I think, maybe in hockey that's easier to say because you have goalies, and it's not always this way. It's not always so clear and so indisputable that a team is like a team you can brag on. But they were. And Carolina was too. And their 11 fans, I'm sure, are having a party today with their win. I mean, that's got to be great for those people. All of them. As they convene in a convenience store somewhere to celebrate. I'm sorry. It's the New York Knicks. It's the Carolina Hurricanes. Can't help it. We can't help not having palm trees and a championship tradition and lower taxes. They can't, even the Florida and Tampa, all of them, they can't help that it's just not that interesting down there to as many people. This is where Buffalo has you beat. We don't have banners to fly in your face, so to speak, but, we love it. We love it more than you do. Take that. Take that as you gallivant down Main Street in Raleigh, North Carolina with your parade in the coming days. It was fun to talk to Sal, and I liked his golf story. How about that? It's no small thing to hole out from 85 yards for the last shot of the day when you're, working. Pretty good. I have one career, also with the career hole out that stands above the rest. And I was not on hold to talk to whoever it would have been here on a Saturday afternoon in 2007-ish. And it was the 6th hole. It was a match. And I want to say I'll never forget it. I may forget it. I'll probably forget everything eventually. When we say we'll never forget it, we probably are wrong about almost everything we say that about. But it's this many years later, and I still remember everything about it. My partner, my opponent's names, they were friends of ours, the golf course, the hole 6 at what is now called Pendleton Creek, about 180 yards, second cut. We were not allowed to talk about that golf course using words like rough, because we all felt like that was, everybody felt like that was insulting. We wanted to sound like real people. So we called it things like the second cut. And the fans were actually called patrons. We were not allowed to refer to them as fans. But, there were lots of them. And I had a shot from about that distance. It's interesting how in golf, sometimes when you're playing a match, you're playing with a partner, or like Sal is playing in a scramble. Nothing against not to take anything away from what he did. When you're in a format like that, you can just always go for it. You're not trying to, shoot a score. You're just trying to hold it out. You're trying to, You're trying to do that. And sometimes you wouldn't necessarily be doing that if you were playing like in a singles match or whatever. Like you're just trying to get up and down or make par. But, in a thing like that, just try to make it. Like a long putt. It's easier. It's more, useful as a comparison. Like if you're putting from 40 feet, might as well just hammer it. Although I'm not sure that logic really holds up. You don't want to baby it, but you don't need to hammer it. You want to make it. And I think that kind of is the same as in most situations. Speaking of golf, I saw a tweet today that was interesting to me from an account on Twitter called Big Swing Tempo. There you go. There's your plug. He or she writes, I was playing in a match, tied going to 16. On the green, we essentially had the same 10-foot putt. So if I 2-putt or putted and he 1-putted, he would win the hole. Makes sense, right? You're both 10 feet away, whatever distance away, and you're even in strokes, and you're even in the match going to 16. You're on the 16th green. This guy writes, I purposely missed so he couldn't get a read. He ended up missing the putt and was mad at me. I thought I'm, tightening this a little bit. Everybody needs an editor. I was thinking that I bet if he'd missed the putt, I would tie the hole. So I didn't want to give him a read. That's the play. I think it would be kind of hard to do that successfully. Where I guess you might, if you're like, you have to be pretty good in the first place so that you know the line and how hard you want to hit the putt, all of that. You must be a good enough player. In the first place, you're playing a match, so you've played golf before. Now you're a good enough player where you think you can miss that 10-foot putt purposely in such a way that both denies your opponent the read and doesn't leave you in bad shape for the next one. Like you want to end up within, 3 feet so that you're feeling like you're going to make the next one. That's a little bit tough to do. That might be about almost as hard to do as actually making the putt or giving yourself a chance to make it. But I guess this guy got paid off. Ties the hole, and I don't know what happened after that. It's not like this was on TV. But he tweeted all this, and 400,000 some views later, it's like people are commenting on whether this was bad etiquette. I think almost anything you can name in golf is fair game in a match. There are definitely gray areas. I'm not talking about talking during the other person's backswing. I'm not talking about anything like that. But any sort of, within sort of the scope of play, anything goes. And in match play, there's room for a lot of this. If you haven't played match play before, there's room for a lot of this. One that I think probably amateurs don't take as much advantage of as they could. Maybe just either because they don't know or because they think it's rude or something, is when you and your partner, one of the two of you, in a say a 4-man match, one of the two of you, yourself or your partner, are the farthest away. You're away. It's your turn to putt. You can have your partner go first. And if you're 40 feet and they're 6 feet, some situation like that, and your opponents are 20 or 30, you might want this. You might want your partner, who's closer to the hole, to go first. And they can make it, and, if they're good, and they make the 6-foot putt, then the other guys have to make theirs from farther out to have the hole. You can do that. I told you where Cabo Verde was. Now I'm giving you this for free. All of this is just, you can use it. As the great Dan Hager said at the roast, when he came up with a one-liner and the room fell deathly silent, he said, you can use that. And that's what I'm saying to you right now. You can use that. Go ahead and let your opponent, I said it again, your partner, who's closer to the hole, go first. Bulldog is off today. Is that not evident? He will be here tomorrow. That's the plan. Also tomorrow, Mike Giardi, talking a little Patriots and AFC East. Wednesday, Jeremy Kahn from Baltimore. We're digging into our files here, getting some of our favorites to help us through the NFL offseason. 803-0550 for your calls. I'm Mike Schopp. Thanks for listening. This is WGR. The Bisons are off today. Another homestand ahead. Charlotte is in town, so Charlotte fans, make sure to get out there this week, starting tomorrow. 2 games in World Cup today, both ties. I have no problem with ties. In fact, I think I might have brought my son over to this take because he came with the, you hear this everywhere when the subject comes up. This ties are boring. Like, I've always thought this. Ever since, what is this, 30 years ago when the NHL did away with ties? They brought the shootout in after the canceled seasons. That's 20, whatever it is. Some games, ties are the right result. I was watching, one of these games was Netherlands and Japan. And Japan scored late. It was a header that went off another guy's head. So it was a double header. Sorry. Double header. Got that? And the game ended 2-2. And I thought, this is when we had the conversation, he and I. It's like, ties. That was the right result for that game. The loser of that game would have been like, any loss, but just we deserved better. And the winner would have been a little lucky. So some of these games, I don't know if Spain and Cabo Verde was exactly this, because Spain had 26 shot attempts or some crazy number. But sometimes tie is the right result. And also, this is a different point, but that game exactly, Cabo Verde getting a tie there was like a national historic event. Tying Spain, 1 or 2 in the world versus I think I saw 67 from Cabo Verde. And, if they go to penalties or something and they lose to Spain, well, then what of it? But sometimes ties are okay. Even in the NHL, I would say, going back to, I didn't need overtime and shootouts as a kid, I guess, to like hockey because they didn't have that. And I liked it well enough. I'm just still having fun with the fact that they can't say the actual names of the stadiums. We were in Seattle Stadium, and who's next? Who hasn't hosted a game yet? Have we been to New York, New Jersey? Yes. We've been to Houston, Dallas. I saw Texas. I think they're going with Dallas Stadium. The Santa Clara Stadium is going by Bay Area Stadium, I believe, which has a famous jeans brand as its usual naming rights sponsor. And that company is getting, I think this is funny, I sort of like this when this happens, this kind of thing, getting a lot of traction out of having its logo covered up in the stadium because they did it by carving the tarp that covers up the sign in the shape of the sign so that you can tell what's there if you know the brand well enough. And I think that's funny when that happens. We have hydration breaks. Those seem to be going well. Even when it's like 65 degrees, we got to take that hydration break and then go to commercial. My guy, Davis Maddock, I'll talk to him tomorrow night on ADP Chasing. He is militant about his anger over these hydration breaks. He's like, it's just about a deal breaker in terms of watching soccer. I can't get that upset about it. We're all noticing how they're using it to sell time, and basically it's just like watching any other sport where they take a 3-minute commercial break and you get ads. You're not missing any of the game, but that's also normal for this. But he is not happy with it. And he thinks if this ends up, and why wouldn't it happen? Integrity of the game only goes so far with sports anymore, if this always hasn't been true. But if it goes as far as we get to Premier League and they take 3-minute hydration breaks in every half, I'm out. What you could do is go drink a glass of water during that, a little bit sort of an opportunity to do something healthy. Not that that's exactly eating broccoli either, but use the hydration break for yourself. Put down that rum and Coke for a minute and go drink a glass of water. Just an idea. Tyler Dunn was on earlier talking mostly about Josh Allen. That's next on WGR.